Good morning. This is Norma Cowie here once more with Norma Talks. Well, we're second week in December, well, the second Wednesday of December, and so we're all ramping up regarding Christmas. The Christmas shows are beginning to come on, Christmas music being played on the radio stations. So it's this time of the year once more where very often, for many of us, it can be a very emotional time. You're away from your family. We have emotional things, especially right now with how which this is going on to our second year of kind of restrictions, lockdowns, mask wearing, everything, you name it. It seems to be, and very often for many of us that are older, it has not been as easy to communicate or go and visit or do things that perhaps we would have normally done. I know distance from the family for me sometimes at this time of the year I have to work with that. And that's what I want to talk a little bit about today, is how very often the reactions that we have in this present day, doesn't really matter what age we are, often stems from our childhood. See, what I found was that what I call freezing space and time. When we have an emotion when we're young, and it can happen from conception, but we'll say young, that what will happen is that we will make a decision about the emotion that we have. And often when we're younger, the emotion is overwhelming. We don't know what to do with that. We're not trained or taught. I find mostly we're not trained or taught how to deal with our feelings, unless you see a therapist later on trying to figure things out. Now, what I began to realize was that feelings was our body's way of talking to us, and it's telling us how we kind of feel. But when we get overwhelmed, we just don't want anything to do with it. We want to back away. We want to stop. We just, don't. But what happens is that we freeze in that space. We freeze in time, and it's only by going back sometimes and talking to that younger part of you. And you could be an adult. This happens as an adult too. It's not just our children, but that's where it often starts. We usually start when we're younger, and we freeze in that time and space. And how I equate it is like a knot in a tree. So we have this little knot within ourselves. Now, what tends to happen is that knot exerts itself out into our vibration. So we recreate same or similar scenarios in our lives. Not every day, but every now and again, you'll find yourself feeling a certain way that's familiar, that you don't want to feel, or you have a certain circumstances come up. I remember one time being in a circumstance that came into my life, and I remember thinking, I've been here before. How did I respond the last time? So I made a different decision to respond differently. And I don't think I've had that scenario come back into my life, mainly because first of all, I know how to go back inside and talk to myself and do those things that we need to do to be able to clear the vibrations and the decisions and the beliefs, and what I call reconnect to the light, reconnect to the loving energy, and sort of integrate. I'm a great believer in integrating aspects of ourselves, and has quite a few simple little exercises actually. And this is the one that I think I explained this one other time, but I'm going to just do it again now. You've got two hands, and you can take two aspects of yourself. You could take your male and female self. You could take a situation when you're 7, and another one present day. And then you just kind of make sure they're balanced. The key is to have a balance. You kind of, if one hand's more than the other, because it'll weigh, and what do you take away, or what do you put on? And what do you add on? What do you do to make sure that these two hands are equal? And then you just bring them in balance in here, integrate them here, and then you bring them inside yourself and integrate them in the inside. Very similar actually can be very quick exercise. But people, where I have worked with this, really can't believe the results that they have. But it's really about being aware. So first of all, we must become aware of when we're upset. what often happens when an event or a situation comes up, and especially in these next coming weeks, where emotions tend to run higher than usual, is that you need to be aware when you're having an emotional reaction. And instead of just suppressing it and maybe getting angry, or because usually what we'll tend to do is we'll get angry, or we'll go like I tend to do, shut away and go away and be sad about it or whatever. That was what I did. I very seldom got angry externally. Inside, yes, but not externally. But so then I would get sort of sad. Depressed would be a good word to put that in. The key is to find out, like, what is it really happening? Because usually you're overwhelmed by what's going on. You don't know how to handle it. You haven't been taught how to handle it when you were young. You don't want to like that feeling. You don't want to feel that feeling. So it all comes down to, what are you talking to yourself? What is that that's bubbling up? Because we don't feel here. We think here, but we all feel up here. And that's why I always say it's the body's way of talking to us. It's telling us how it feels about it. And the key here is like grief. This time of the year, grief is really high about also things. People that have departed that you're not going to see, or you have memories of when, I have wonderful memories of Christmases when I was a kid. I had wonderful memories when my children were young, and how the celebrations that we had and things like that. So it's like we have a level of good memories, and then all of a sudden we're in a place where what exactly is going on, what's happening outside, and also the energy outside, excuse me, also comes in, and we have to deal with that. So the first thing is to really be aware when you begin to feel either sad or mad. Just realize, okay, something's going on here. What is that? If you can breathe deeper, if you can go a little deeper into the scenarios that are underneath, then you might be able to find the thought or the belief systems that are there. And sometimes that's difficult because the emotions are so high and they're running, and it's kind of like you don't know what, because we don't want to go into that place where we feel less than. We don't want to go into that place where we feel overwhelmed because we don't know what to do. How do we handle this? And so what we'll tend to do is either lock it away and be sad, or outpicture it and be mad. We don't want to do that. If you can realize that you're a complex being to a large degree, even though it's very simple, it's still complex. We've spent, depending how many years that you've spent on the planet in this lifetime, but this lifetime blocks often come from other lifetimes, other scenarios, other situations. And when you've hit it into this life, you've remade the same basic decisions as that you've always had. So in a way, this whole eternal element is there. Now, this comes up in any time when there's strong, we'll say, contradictions in the life, when the emotions are brought forward. And so consequently, it becomes very important to be able to be in the present and be able to know where you are. As I said earlier, one of the ways I discover is when I find situations which tend to repeat themselves. I always take a look. What's this doing back here, this feeling? Now, it doesn't mean you don't have situations, but when you're aware of what you feel and you're aware of your feelings and you listen to what your feelings are, it's very easy to then balance them out and to be able to decide the direction you want to go in and what you want to do. It's when you resist, when you don't want to have to listen to that. It's really weird. Many of you maybe were, I was listening to The Voice last night, and there's one singer in there, and I haven't figured it out yet, but I will, because she's made it into the final. I do not like her voice. I have no idea why. I have no idea what it is. Every time she sings, I fast forward through, and I'm thinking last night, so I'm like a detective when I realized this. That what is it that's triggering in me? Is it her tone? Is it her look? What is it being triggered? I am definitely getting triggered by this one singer. And I liked my singing shows. I like my dancing shows as well. That's one of the things I enjoy tremendously. And I found it interesting, and I began to become aware several weeks back. I'm having difficulty with this singer. How come? So that's my project next week, is to discover that because I delete it after usually when I watch. So, but next week when they do the final, she will be there, and I'll really monitor myself to see where is it a tone. Very often people have tones in their voices. It's not how they look, it's not what they sing or speak, but it's a tone. And I think that's probably it here. There's a tone, because right from the get-go, she has not been one of my favorites. And so it's like, oh, that's interesting. So I kind of, like we often do, wiped it aside. Like, okay. But now I realize when this happened again just the other night, I went, wow, I'm going to have to really look at that and figure that out, because I don't like it when something on the outside rules my responses. And that's what it is, because it's something that I almost did automatically, and so it's probably that's what I think. It's a tone. Sometimes it's look, but I have a feeling this is tone, because I can be susceptible to tones. And what I mean by susceptible to tones, and maybe you're the same way, is that if a certain tone will put my back up a little bit, and a lot of that is because, sometimes people control us through tones of voices or looks and things like that when we're young. Now, I haven't figured this one out, because it's only last week. It was only on Monday when I realized what I'd done again. I went, oh, well, I have to figure out what this is, because that means that little bit where I'm putting the control of me outside of myself, allowing the outside to dictate. And I personally don't feel that I want to do that. I want to be in command of myself and understand myself and to be aware of it. So what am I saying here? I'm saying is that we're coming into a time period that's an emotional time period. And very often we suffer from grief that we may not be acknowledging. We may find ourselves get frustrated and angry. And we've already got a lot of that flying around in the collective consciousness now as it is. So that can trigger other things. Disappointment, hurt, pain, yes, that's part of the season anyway, but we need to be present with it, understand it, accept it, work through it, and come out the other side, because within a month we'll be into January. And so it'll be a new year, and all sorts of other new things will be happening and occurring. Now, I don't know about where you are, but we've been getting snow here, and that's always a fascinating time too, because it's like, it's beautiful when you look at it, but then when you go out, you have to clean off everything and have to drive in it and things like that. But it's always delightful. And where I live, we don't always get snow at this time of the year, not every year. In fact, most of the Christmases have been green here. But this year, it could be gone by then, who knows, because that's what happens with us. We've had a lot of water in our area, a lot of flooding, a lot of mudslides, roads down. It's been a tumultuous fall. Tumultuous is a good word. One thing after the other. And I don't know that I have too much else to say, except I want you to be aware and stay in touch with you. I want you, as we go through the weeks leading up to this Christmas, because things build up. I know we have another eclipse coming up another couple of weeks, I think, just before Christmas. I believe that's going to be a watershed for something. And if those watched last week and saw the reading for December, it still seemed a little bit of a hodgepodge, a lot of dealing with things. And that's usually December in lots of ways for us, mainly because our emotions get tested. And remember, we're not even though we might live very cellular, and we are not an island, the collective consciousness doesn't know walls. The collective consciousness is just everywhere. And if you just have something to trigger you, something you've seen on the TV, something you've heard on the radio, something somebody's messaged you, then you can easily click into many, many other things. So I just want you to have a happy December, a time of rejoicing and a time of getting together with friends if possible, or family if possible, and acceptance of you. You can celebrate you anytime, any day, anywhere. And I really would like you to be able to enjoy that. But I want you to understand, because I'm going to double back to what I started off with. We have these frozen parts of us where we're frozen in time. It could have been when we were little, it could have been 2 weeks ago. But it's very important to see and find those and release them and let them go if possible. I wrote a book about it, actually, called Connecting to the Light. And it's interesting because I'm working with a few people on that patterning this week. So wishing you well, wishing you great. Oh, I must say, a couple of people have subscribed. I really appreciate that. I also have some new ideas of some things I want to do that I had in my inspiration last night. So I'm looking forward to that in the new year, which I shall inform you about. Comments are always great. And I appreciate each and every one of you who's watched this. I just trust this brings a little bit more of an insight when you find yourself getting uptight or upset or just sad. That just breathe, be with yourself. Know that you're loved by the universe. Know that you are loved and worthy to create what you want to create. And so I wish you well and say thank you very much for watching. Bye now.